My husband's parents made me sit at the kids' table at his sister's wedding, so I exposed what they did to my family last Christmas in front of everyone, then kicked them out of my house. So I've been married to my husband Travis for about 3 years now. We met at a friend's party during grad school, and we just clicked right away. We dated for about 2 years before getting married, and things have been really good between us for the most part, except when it comes to his parents. His mom and dad, Virginia and Howard, are old money. They have this massive house in the right neighborhood. They belong to the country club. They know all the important people in town, and they've never thought I was good enough for Travis. From day one, I could tell they were just waiting for us to break up so Travis could find someone from their social circle. I'm a high school English teacher, which I love, by the way, but Virginia once referred to my career as my little hobby job at Thanksgiving dinner and suggested I should be focusing on having babies instead. Travis just kind of laughed it off, which still bothers me when I think about it. For the record, we've agreed to wait on kids, not that it's anyone's business but ours. Travis works at this corporate job that his dad basically handed to him. Howard made one phone call, and suddenly Travis had this amazing opportunity. Travis works hard, and he's good at what he does, but it's just another way his parents keep control over him. We bought our house 2 years ago, and this is important. We bought it using money I inherited when my grandmother passed away. So I'm not just living in Travis's house, or whatever Virginia likes to imply. It's my house too, legally and financially. I contributed more than half the down payment. Travis's younger sister, Chelsea, recently got married to Stephen. His family knows Howard through business connections, so of course, the parents were thrilled about the match. The wedding was at the country club where Howard's on the board. I spent weeks trying to find the perfect dress because I knew Virginia would find something to criticize. Chelsea didn't ask me to be a bridesmaid, even though Travis was a groomsman, which hurt my feelings, but whatever. I still tried to be helpful. I addressed invitations and assembled gift bags because I was trying to bond with Chelsea, who has always been cold to me. So the wedding day comes, and everything is going fine until the reception. I'm looking for my seat, checking the place cards, and I can't find mine at Travis's table. I ask one of the coordinators, and she shows me to my assigned table. And guys, it was the kids' table. I'm not exaggerating. I was seated with children aged 8 to 12 while my husband was at the main family table with his parents, Chelsea, Stephen, and all the other close relatives. Even all the other spouses of family members were seated with their partners, just not me. I was in shock. I stood there staring at the table, trying to process what was happening. One of the little kids asked if I was the babysitter. I went to find Virginia, who was fussing with some flowers. I asked her about the mistake with the seating, and she told me it wasn't a mistake. She said I was good with children from my teaching job and that they needed Travis for family photos during dinner. When I pointed out that every other spouse was seated with their partner, she told me not to make a scene because it was Chelsea's day. Travis came over, probably because he saw my face getting red. I blush when I'm upset. When I told him about being seated at the kids' table, he whispered that it was just one dinner and we shouldn't cause problems. Then Virginia walked away with this little smirk. I went to the kids' table because what else could I do? I sat through dinner watching Travis at the family table. He would glance over at me occasionally while I was cutting chicken fingers into smaller pieces for an 8-year-old and trying not to cry. I should mention, I'm normally not the type to make waves in social situations. I usually just go with the flow and try to keep the peace. I'm the person who apologizes when someone else bumps into me, you know what I mean. But something in me just broke. After dinner, when they started doing speeches, I had a few glasses of champagne for courage. When the MC asked if anyone else wanted to toast the couple, I walked up to the microphone. I started by congratulating Chelsea and Stephen, but then I couldn't stop myself. I told everyone about being seated at the children's table and how it was just the latest example of disrespect from Howard and Virginia, especially after what they did to my family last Christmas. I also announced that the after party scheduled at our house was canceled for Howard and Virginia, saying they weren't welcome in my house. Then I grabbed my purse and walked out. Travis came running after me to the parking lot, angry about how I embarrassed everyone on his sister's wedding day. I cried the whole drive home. But when we got home, Howard and Virginia showed up anyway with about 10 other guests, insisting the after party go on as planned. I refused to let them in, reminding them it was my house too. Travis was caught in the middle, and he ended up letting them in while I locked myself in our bedroom. He slept in the guest room that night. It's been 3 days, and Travis is still barely speaking to me. He says I need to apologize to everyone, especially Chelsea. But honestly, I feel like I'm the one who deserves an apology. Am I crazy here? Did I go too far? I know wedding speeches aren't the place for this kind of thing, but after what happened at Christmas and now this, I just couldn't take being treated like I don't matter anymore. Edit. Since so many people are asking, the Christmas incident was really bad. I'll have to write about it in another post because it's a whole thing. But basically, Howard and Virginia were incredibly cruel to my parents and sister when they were invited to Christmas dinner. Travis didn't witness the worst of it, and when I told him what happened, he didn't fully believe me. No, Travis and I haven't been to therapy. I've suggested it before because of issues with his parents, but he always says we can handle things ourselves. After this weekend, though, I'm thinking maybe it's time to insist. To the people saying I should have just sucked it up for one night, you have no idea what it's like to be constantly disrespected for years. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was the last straw after a pattern of them treating me like I'm not really part of the family. Now for the first update. First of all, thanks to everyone who commented on my last post. I really wasn't expecting so many responses, and honestly wasn't even sure if anyone would believe me about the kids' table thing. A lot of you asked about the Christmas incident I mentioned in my speech, and yeah, I probably should explain that, since it's actually pretty important to understanding everything that's happened since the wedding. So after I made that scene at Chelsea's wedding, which by the way, I still don't fully regret, even though maybe I could have handled it better, Travis was furious. Like he wouldn't even ride home with me. He had his friend Mark come pick him up from the venue, and he stayed at Mark's place for 3 days. He wouldn't answer my calls at first, just sent these really cold texts about how I had ruined the most important day of his sister's life and humiliated the entire family. This isn't even the first time he's disappeared during a fight, by the way. Last year, I questioned why his mom kept using her emergency key to let herself into our house whenever she felt like it, sometimes while we were sleeping, and he literally took off for the entire weekend. Came back Sunday night like nothing happened. But that's a whole other story, I guess. Anyway, so what happened at Christmas? I'm still mad about this. So last Christmas was actually the first time Howard and Virginia had ever invited my family to their annual Christmas dinner. My parents, Jack and Sarah, and my sister Stephanie had never been included before, and I was actually really excited because I thought maybe they were finally accepting my family after like 3 years of marriage. I should have known better, honestly. My mom spent like 2 whole days making her special cranberry bread pudding to bring. It's this family recipe that everyone always requests at holidays. And my dad, who is not wealthy, bought this really expensive bottle of scotch for Howard, even though I know they're on a tight budget since Dad's hours got cut back at work. When we all arrived at the in-laws' mansion, the housekeeper directed my family to sit in this separate dining room that's connected to the main dining room by this big open archway. At first, I was like, okay, maybe they just don't have enough room at the main table. But then I realized Howard, Virginia, Travis, Chelsea, and all their rich friends were sitting at this huge table that definitely had extra chairs. They could have easily fit us all. But I tried not to make a big deal about it because my parents were already uncomfortable and I didn't want to make things worse. My mom kept saying, "This is fine, honey, don't worry," but I could tell she was hurt. So during dinner, I got up to use the bathroom, and as I was walking down the hallway, I heard Howard's voice. He has this really distinctive laugh that carries. And, well, I heard them talking about my family. I overheard Howard making fun of my dad's clothes, saying they were cheap. Their friends laughed at this. Then Virginia made fun of my mom's homemade dessert, like it wasn't good enough for them. Howard complained that Travis could have married someone from a family with connections instead of us. He called us a holiday charity case and said Travis had insisted on inviting us after an argument last year. The worst part was when Virginia said they were feeding my family leftover catered food from the day before instead of the prime rib everyone else was eating. They caught me listening, and Howard just coldly told me eavesdropping was rude. Virginia tried to claim they were just joking and that I'm too sensitive. I was so upset, I recorded some of what they said after that because I knew Travis wouldn't believe me otherwise. They kept making mean comments about my family's clothes, jobs, and my sister's boyfriend who's a mechanic. When I confronted them later that night, Virginia claimed they seated my family separately because they thought they would be more comfortable away from the overwhelming main group. Howard even had the nerve to suggest my family had been inappropriate and demanding with their serving staff, which was completely untrue. My parents are like the most polite people ever. When I told Travis what happened, he was like, "I'm sure they didn't mean it that way, and you probably misunderstood, and my parents wouldn't do that. It's always like this. He always gives them the benefit of the doubt." So after the whole wedding fiasco, when he finally came home from Mark's, I decided to just play him the recording. I'd been keeping it as proof, but never shared it, because honestly, I was trying to protect him from knowing how his parents really feel about my family. But after the wedding thing, I was like, enough is enough. He listened to the recording, and his face just changed. He went from looking annoyed with me to looking shocked. Then he immediately called his parents and put them on speakerphone. Howard answered and started demanding an apology from me for the wedding scene. But Travis asked about the seating arrangement at the wedding instead. Virginia actually admitted they deliberately put me at the kids' table and said she didn't think I'd make a fuss about it. When Travis asked why they would disrespect his wife like that, Virginia said, "I don't fit their family image." Howard added they were hoping Travis would eventually realize his mistake and find someone more suitable. Travis got really angry, which he rarely does. When Virginia tried to change the subject back to my behavior at the wedding, Travis brought up the Christmas dinner and how they treated my family. Howard dismissed it as me being sensitive and mentioned something about class differences. Virginia started crying, saying Travis was choosing me over his real family. Travis ended the call, saying he needed time to think about his relationship with them. So anyway, we've been in couples therapy for the past few weeks. I suggested it a bunch of times before, but this was the first time Travis agreed. Chelsea is still super mad about the wedding, whatever. But actually her husband Steven privately messaged me to say he understood why I reacted the way I did. Apparently, he's witnessed how Howard and Virginia treat me at family gatherings and was like, "Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't snap sooner." The problem is Howard and Virginia have been telling everyone this completely twisted version of what happened. They're making me sound like I'm emotionally unstable and attention-seeking. I mean, I don't care what people think, I really don't. But it makes me so mad that they're damaging my reputation with Travis's extended family, who I've been trying so hard to connect with. Travis is still really torn. I can tell he wants to stand up for me, but he spent his whole life trying to please his parents. Our therapist says it will take time for him to change this pattern. The holidays are coming up again, and I'm honestly dreading it. Travis mentioned his cousin's dinner, and I just don't know if I can face Howard and Virginia again so soon. I'm worried our marriage might not survive this whole thing. Like, is this how it's always going to be? Am I always going to be the unsuitable wife they're trying to get rid of? Edit. A lot of people are asking if I still have the recording. Yes, I do. Our therapist actually suggested I keep it as a reminder for Travis when he starts to doubt his parents' behavior again. I'm not planning to share it with anyone else, though. That feels like it would just escalate things. To everyone saying Travis should cut contact with his parents immediately, it's not that simple. He's financially entangled with them through his job. His dad could literally get him fired with one phone call. We're working on a plan for him to find a different job, but that takes time. For those asking why I stayed after the Christmas incident, I guess I kept hoping things would change. And Travis kept insisting his parents just needed time to warm up to me. I know that sounds naive now, but when you love someone, you want to believe the best version of events, you know. Someone asked about my in-laws' reaction to me using my inheritance for our house. They basically pretend it didn't happen. Virginia always introduces it as Travis's lovely home to people. When I corrected her once, she just laughed like I was making a cute joke. It's infuriating. Now for the second update. It's been a little over 2 months since the wedding and everything that followed, and I just wanted to thank everyone who commented on my previous posts. So after my last update, Travis and I continued with couples therapy. I was honestly surprised he kept going after the first few sessions because he hates talking about feelings, like actively avoids it his entire life. Our therapist is this really straightforward woman who who doesn't let either of us get away with BS excuses, which I think is exactly what we needed. Oh, I almost forgot to mention something important that happened right after my last post. I was cleaning out our storage closet, because organizing is my stress response, lol, and I found this box of Travis's childhood stuff. There were these journals he kept from like age 10 to 16, and I wasn't going to read them because privacy and all, but he said it was fine. Reading those journals was really upsetting. The things this kid wrote about never feeling good enough unless he was perfect in every way for his parents. There's this one entry from when he was 12 where he got a 94% on some math test and he was so afraid of disappointing his dad. When I read that part to Travis, he got really quiet and then just said, "That sounds about right." I think seeing his childhood thoughts written out like that really helped him understand why he has such a hard time standing up to his parents. Anyway, therapy has been helping Travis recognize all these patterns that he grew up thinking were normal. Our therapist says he's been raised his whole life to prioritize his parents' approval above everything else, which explains a lot about why he struggled to set boundaries with them. So after a few weeks of therapy, Travis decided to establish some firm boundaries with Howard and Virginia. He wrote them an email saying they needed to apologize to my family for the Christmas incident and to me for the wedding seating thing before we could move forward with any kind of relationship. He was so nervous sending it that he literally had to leave the room while I hit send for him. You guys can probably guess how they responded. Instead of apologizing, they tried to buy their way back into our good graces. First, it was this ridiculously expensive watch for Travis, which he returned. Then they sent us this whole vacation package to some resort in Maui, also returned. Virginia even showed up at my school one day with flowers, but I was teaching, so the front office just took them. The card basically said, "Let's put this unfortunate misunderstanding behind us," which is not an apology. Things were pretty quiet for a few weeks after that. We had limited contact with them. Travis would answer their texts, but kept it brief and businesslike. I honestly thought maybe they were finally getting the message. Then last Thursday, everything got worse again. I was supposed to be at a parent-teacher conference that normally runs until like 8 p.m., but it ended early because half the parents canceled, flu going around. I got home around 6:30 and walked in to find Travis in our living room with Howard and Virginia. I could tell immediately something was wrong from Travis's face. He looked angry, but also weirdly calm. I heard Virginia talking about how Travis could still annul the marriage as I was walking in. Then Howard was saying something about having connections who could make this go away quietly. Travis saw me standing in the doorway before his parents did. Howard kept talking, still not seeing me, mentioning financial help until Travis got back on his feet. And Virginia mentioned finding someone more suitable, some woman named Crystal Williams, whose divorce was just finalized. I must have made some kind of noise because they both turned around and saw me. Virginia looked really shocked, and Howard just got this weird, tight smile. Howard immediately tried to act like they were just discussing family matters in that condescending voice he always uses with me. Travis told them he'd been recording the entire conversation. Howard demanded he delete it, but Travis refused. He said he learned from me that sometimes proof is necessary, which made me feel really proud. Virginia started fake crying, saying they were being misunderstood, and Howard threatened to cut Travis off financially and professionally. He said he could make one call and Travis would be out of a job by Monday. Travis told him he didn't need his money or connections anymore. He's been quietly applying for jobs at other companies for the past month. I didn't mention this before because nothing was certain, but he actually got an offer last week from a competitor. I finally spoke up and told them they weren't welcome in our house anymore. Howard tried to dismiss me completely, saying the house discussion was between the men. Seriously. Travis told them to leave immediately. Virginia pretended to have heart problems. Travis offered to call an ambulance. She suddenly felt better, and they finally left, but not before Howard threatened legal action for what, being recorded in our house, whatever. After they left, I just sat on the couch in shock. Travis played the recording for me, and it was even worse than what I'd walked in on. They had spent 20 minutes trying to convince him that I was ruining his life and his legacy, whatever that means. The next day, Travis sent the recording to Chelsea and a few close family members. I was nervous about this, but he said he was tired of his parents controlling the narrative. The response was surprising. Chelsea actually called me to apologize. She said she had no idea her parents were so manipulative and that the wedding seating wasn't her idea at all. Virginia had changed the place cards last minute and told Chelsea I had requested to sit with the kids because I was uncomfortable with the family. It's been about 6 months now since the wedding incident, and our relationship with Howard and Virginia is still pretty strained, but at least it's on our terms now. We've had very limited contact, and Travis has been super clear about what behavior is acceptable. They haven't apologized directly yet, but they've stopped their active campaign against me at least. Our relationship with Chelsea has actually improved a lot. After she heard the recording of her parents basically plotting to break up our marriage, she started to see things differently. She and Steven invited us over for dinner a couple weeks ago, and it was nice, like actually pleasant. I'm hopeful about that relationship. The big test came last weekend when Travis's cousin Leon invited both couples, us and Howard/Virginia, to a family dinner at his place. Our therapist helped us prepare for this, and we decided to go as an opportunity to establish our united front in a neutral setting. When we arrived, Leon and his wife were super warm to both of us. A few other family members were there too, and they all seemed normal. Then Howard and Virginia walked in, and everyone got really uncomfortable. Throughout dinner, Virginia kept making these passive-aggressive comments about loyalty and real family. Every single time, Travis would call her out on it. Like, she said something about blood being thicker than water, and Travis asked if she was implying I wasn't real family. It was glorious. Howard tried several times to pull Travis aside for a man-to-man talk, but Travis kept saying anything he wanted to say could be said in front of me. I was so proud of him. The most shocking moment came when Chelsea actually spoke up and told their parents their behavior was unacceptable. I was completely surprised. Then Leon, who I always thought was firmly in Howard and Virginia's corner, stood up and said he'd heard about both the Christmas incident and the recent confrontation at our house. Virginia tried to dismiss it all as exaggerations from me. Travis just calmly took out his phone and played a short clip from the recording. Everyone went quiet. Howard's face changed colors several times. Virginia eventually made a forced apology when the other family members pressured her into it. I tried to be gracious about it, but also made it clear we weren't just going to pretend everything was fine now. So that's where we are now. It's not a perfect resolution. Is there ever such a thing in real life? But Travis and I are definitely stronger for having gone through this together. He's getting much better at recognizing his parents' tactics and standing up to them. I'm learning to trust that he has my back, even if it takes him a minute to get there sometimes. We're planning to host our own holiday gathering next year and invite both sides of the family with very clear expectations about respectful behavior. I've totally moved on from all the hurt, mostly, though I still get this weird tight feeling in my chest whenever someone mentions Howard and Virginia. Our therapist says that's normal and will fade with time. Edit. Some people are asking if Howard followed through on his threat to get Travis fired. No, because Travis had already given notice at his company before the confrontation happened. His new job actually pays better and has way better work-life balance. Howard apparently tried to call in some favors to block the new job, but Travis had already warned his new boss about potential interference from his father, so they ignored Howard's calls. Yes, I still have doubts about whether this peace will last. Howard and Virginia still occasionally try to contact Travis directly at work, which is annoying. And last week, Virginia accidentally sent me a text that was clearly meant for someone else, talking about how the situation is temporary and Travis will come to his senses eventually. So, yeah. But at least we're dealing with it together now.